Welcome to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk. I'm Dr. Jenna, and I am looking forward to today's conversation. I would like it to be a little more casual again, speaking directly to you. I don't script any of these episodes, but I do provide an outline for myself because in condensing the information, there's often several points that I want to make sure that I remember to say. So I draft a little bit of an outline so that I can stay somewhat on point, but I'm always sort of from the heart in the way that I do these. There's no outline today. I felt inspired to talk about how I view health and the different facets of health a little bit differently than we've talked about so far. So last week we talked about the success formula, and I don't remember if I said this, but I want to stress that what success means. I talked about redefining success, but it's also very individual. I talked about redefining success more as a journey than a destination, but what success is to you is very individual. You'll have to determine what success means for you. It's very similar to health. Some of us want to keep getting to a better and higher up-leveled version of health, and other people, maybe we're satisfied with the status quo. Although I would challenge that as well, because I think when we get a glimpse of feeling better and we really see what it can feel like to feel amazing, to have energy, to think clearly, to feel good in our bodies, most of us are going to want more of that. So I got just this vision this morning of, we've talked about the pillars and breaking down the pillars of health. And we talked about the success formula, which can be applied to any area of your life. It could be applied to money, to fitness, to health, etc. I want to talk about the approach of body, mind, spirit medicine. All right. In conventional medicine, we have branches that are just treating the physical, and they're not interested in the mental, emotional. And then we have mental health division, so to speak, where we are looking at mental health. But unfortunately, much of that, like in psychiatry, has turned into prescription medications rather than counseling and behavioral therapy. Although that still exists, but it seems to be more psychologists that are doing that. I'm not here to judge other systems of medicine, but the approach to me that resonates on a really deep level is body, mind, spirit, right? Your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being. And I weave into that ultimate life goals, because how you want to live while you're working, how you want to live if you're taking care of kids and family, how you want to live in retirement, all matters. Because if we don't have our health, we're not living the way we want to live. If we have our health and maybe we have all the money we want, but we're really unhappy, so then we're not really living the way we want to live. So all of these things are important, and they all weave together. I chose to have my kids go to a Waldorf school from preschool on. And I should probably say it chose me, because the way I stumbled upon it before I knew what it was, because I thought Waldorf and Montessori were basically the same thing. And I won't go into that story, but I did kind of stumble upon it and ended up enrolling my son in preschool. And the more I learned about it, the more inspired I was and the more excited I was about that type of education. And so in Waldorf, they often talk about treating the child, as a whole person, similar to Montessori, but working with head, heart, and hands. Head, heart, and hands. So what does that mean in a Waldorf education? That means the head is the thinking, feeling, hands are the feeling, and heart is will or action. And so when we look at the success formula, when I talked about manifestation, when I talk about those other pieces, we're talking about thinking, feeling, and acting all being in alignment, right? How we think affects how we feel. It affects the behaviors. It affects the actions we take in the world. And I loved that. I used to joke, actually I still do, that if naturopathic medicine had a branch of education, it would be Waldorf. And so what I've seen from this education is that my children have been seen as whole beings, and we recognize that, let's say if they're misbehaving, that's a symptom, right? It's not who they are. Kids are not inherently bad or inherently evil. It's a symptom of something else. Could be a symptom of their home environment, the things they've been exposed to, could be a physical or mental emotional imbalance. And so rather than just punishing the child or isolating the child, you try to reach them in the way that works for them. So I'm not going to go off on the Waldorf education, but this is my approach to medicine as well. The symptoms are just an effect. If it takes years for cholesterol to show up on your labs as being out of balance, but the inflammation, the dysfunction behind it has probably been building for quite some time. And so in modern medicine, we typically wait until it's on the labs before we treat it. And we're still not typically looking upstream at what are the causes. And so it's symptom management. Let me give you this pill for these symptoms. Let me recommend this surgery for these symptoms. And sometimes those pills are indicated. Sometimes the surgery is indicated. But I still want to get to the root cause of the disease in the people that I'm working with, because otherwise we haven't really solved the problem. You can take a statin to lower your cholesterol, but whatever's driving that, the inflammation, the liver dysfunction, whatever it is, has not been addressed. And so if we come at it from all angles, I often say, I like to work with people, no boxes left unchecked. And that's why when we talk about hormone therapy, or we talk about your thyroid, or whatever ailment I might do a podcast on, these other pieces are still important. You are not just a physical body. You are not just a mental body, and you're not just a spiritual body. I mean, I believe, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and all of these ripple in and ripple out because they're connected. And so you could be striving for physical health, but if you're really miserable in your job, you're not likely going to really get the health. In fact, there have been studies that show that, I think the most common time of people having a heart attack is 9 a.m. Monday morning. I was just listening to somebody recently that was saying 9 a.m. Monday morning because people are unhappy in their job. And, jokingly, just I'll just move my work day to Tuesday does not solve the problem if you're unhappy. If you're unhappy in your marriage, in your relationship, you're not really going to have health on all levels. It will inhibit your ability to get better. Now, our attitude affects these things, certainly. Let's say you're in an unhappy marriage, but you're not willing to leave. I mean, I've worked with people, they're like, absolutely, I'm not happy, but I will not leave my partner. If that is the case for you, for example, then you have to change your attitude. You have to find your peace. You have to find your joy within that relationship. Otherwise, it will slowly be eating away. Energy is always moving. It's moving towards more life, expansion, or deterioration, decay. So we're either moving towards health or we're moving away. And so if we break down physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, this is a little bit different from the pillars, right? Now, when I talk about the pillars of health, we talk about movement, we talk about nutrition, we talk about sleep, and that sacred space piece addresses the mental, emotional a little bit, as does moving your body. The sacred space piece is meditation, prayer, can be that spiritual piece. But if we scale back, to me, this is more the 30,000 foot view of health. So the physical body is the densest form of matter. It is the last place where things show up. So similarly, we feel anxiety. So let's say you have a thought. You have a thought, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing. Maybe you have a confrontation, or you have to have what you consider a challenging conversation with someone. So you have that thought and you attach meaning to that thought, because any anxiety, happiness, sadness typically comes from attaching meaning to a circumstance, because you can have people that experience similar things with completely different reactions. And so you have a thought, you attach meaning to it, good or bad. And then that goes into the emotional body and we start to feel, maybe we feel anxiety about it. Oh, I have to have this confrontation. That's a big deal. They might get upset with me. They may not like me, whatever it is. Then you start to feel anxiety. That's the emotional body, right? Thinking into feeling. And then what happens is you might start to feel it in your physical body. You get butterflies. You might get a stomach ache. Some people are so holding on to things emotionally, they get constipated. And so the physical is actually the last place to experience what is going on with us mentally, emotionally, and potentially spiritually. Now, if you get an impact in a car accident, that's the physical body being impacted, but that can ripple back. You could get in an accident, you could have something happen to a body part, and then that starts to affect your mental, emotional well-being. I don't feel we can have the highest levels of health if we're not addressing all of these. And so you can look at these areas of your life and say, okay, I'm doing things that are good for my physical well-being. I'm moving my body. I'm eating fairly healthy, but I'm really unhappy in my job. I'm really unhappy with whatever. And what many of us tend to do is feel trapped. We feel like we don't have choices. Well, I can't quit my job because XYZ. I could never move from this area that I'm unhappy living in because of XYZ. And this is where we're not understanding the control center of our mind and this is why I am unable to separate mindset from health. Because when I work with people that say, let's say, have struggled, women who've struggled with weight their entire life, and this roller coaster of gaining weight and losing weight and not feeling good in their bodies, and they have a self-saboteur. We all have a self-saboteur. It manifests in different ways. For some people, it manifests as binge eating. For other people, it manifests, for me, like if I get overwhelmed, it just paralyzes me. And so we have to understand and learn to identify, ideally, our saboteur, because to get real change, to get real transformation, when we can recognize the things that keep us from achieving the goals that we're trying to achieve, then we can start to see the triggers and work upstream and push through them. We all have saboteurs, but who do you want to win? Who's in the driver's seat? Do you want to take control of your life back, or let somebody else drive? Let fear drive. Let anxiety drive the car for you. Bob Proctor used to talk about we are extras in the film of our life. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what he said, but let's be the directors, or just let's not even. We might be the actors. We might be the extra. We're just the actors, but let's be the directors. And so these levels, they're bi-directional. How we think affects how we feel, affects how we act, affects our physical well-being, and our physical well-being affects our emotions and our mental. So it's like, for example, when we're in pain, physical pain, it's very hard maybe to think right, or much harder. It's hard to feel emotionally positive and have a positive attitude when we're in pain, but certainly some people do it. And so, I've seen kids show this level of resilience, which is pretty phenomenal. And so if you went to, like, let's say a cancer ward, you're going to find some people that are really giving their power away and feeling victim to the circumstances, and others that are like, no, I get to decide how I feel. I get to control how I respond to this. And ultimately what we think becomes our reality, in that we're going to see the world how we see it. And so if we choose to work with our minds, work with our bodies, work with our feelings to help create, both what we have in our world and what we're attracting. And so, for example, when we don't feel good about ourselves, we usually don't eat as well. If we're having a day where we feel sorry for ourselves, or we feel like we don't have a lot of self-worth, we might reach for more chips, more cookies, more crap. And days when we're feeling good and positive, or when we've worked on our confidence, we've worked on our self-esteem, we may likely make healthier choices. That's why, we can ask ourselves, like, what would a happy person do? What would a fit person do? And we change through behavior and action, much more than thinking. The thinking is important. We have to think correctly. But when we do, like, how do you face your fear? You can try to think your way out of your fear, right? Rationalize your way out of your fear, but it's the doing that actually is going to address the fear. Like, you're ready to jump out of a plane and you're freaking out and you're holding on to the side. I'm afraid. It's the doing. It's the only way. The fear is not going to go away magically as you're staring down at space and the ground below you. It's the doing. And so we can start behaving as if we're already healthy. And then we're going to make healthier choices. Start behaving as if we're happy. In fact, studies have also shown that when you laugh, you feel happier. Even if you're not, like, you're sort of forcing the laughter, let's just start laughing. And then if somebody hears you, they'll think you're crazy. And then you might actually be laughing. But, they've done studies where when you smile, when you laugh, you do the behavior of someone who's happy. You do the behavior of somebody who's positive, and it's just a matter of time before that actually becomes who you are. Just like if you do the behaviors of somebody who's active and fit, it may take longer for some people. It may take shorter for some people. We've talked in other podcasts about the physiological reasons why that may be. But the more you take those behaviors and you stick with it, it is inevitable. It is just a matter of time before you're fit. It is just a matter of time before you see the results. But what usually happens is we get discouraged, we get frustrated, and then we sabotage ourselves. And so we stop and start. We're up and down, up and down. So looking at, back to the Waldorf analogy, when they look at thinking with these young ones, there's not testing, there's not standardized tests, at least in the ones that are independent. If they're state-run Waldorf schools, they're going to mandate that they follow this craziness that we have with let's cram as much information into your head and have you regurgitate it, and that somehow means that you're ready for life. And so my kids go to a private Waldorf where they don't have to do that testing. And so the thinking is about thinking critically. It's about being able to make decisions. It's about being able to assess situations and think critically and think independently. So it's not about pushing dogma. It's not about pushing belief systems, but presenting, study the religions, for example, study all the religions, not with judgment, and just be able to make your own independent assessment of things. I mean, religion is kind of a weird example, but for anything that they're learning, yes, there's certain, pieces of life that they're learning, but the goal is that they're thinking independently and they're thinking critically, and they become what a lot of, I don't know how much research has been on it, but I believe there's been some that and it could be, just observational, I don't actually know, to be fully transparent, that they're more emotionally adaptable, these kids. They're more emotionally intelligent. And so a lot of people, for example, have this myth that in Waldorf, like, they don't do science and they don't do math, which is garbage. I mean, my son he's like a math whiz, and he's gone to Waldorf since preschool. And in first grade, he was doing second grade math. Like, every year he was a year ahead because they accommodated the fact that he was learning very quickly. But they're not on the same schedule because they're doing, as say the public schools, because they're doing it when they're neurologically ready for certain information. So they're not having them read in kindergarten. Can you teach a kid to learn to read in kindergarten? Absolutely. But is it neurologically appropriate? The belief in this system is no. And so some people have looked and said, okay, we're comparing, when we have public school kids who come over to Waldorf, they're maybe ahead in certain subjects. And maybe when the Waldorf kids go to the high school or switch schools, they're maybe behind. But what they found, first of all, that's not always true. But if it is, and when it is, those kids caught up much more quickly on the sciences, on math, on anything, history, whatever they might have been behind on because they didn't have, standardized tests. They caught up more quickly, but their emotional intelligence was higher, their adaptability was higher, versus kids that came over that were maybe ahead in certain subjects, but they couldn't adapt emotionally to different situations. The reason I talk about this is because our adaptability is life. Our flexibility is life. And that's why whenever I work with people And that's why I'm mixing these podcasts up. I don't want to just cram information at you, because information, first of all, we can get information overload, but information without knowing what to do with it or think critically about it is not very helpful. I would much rather my child be adaptable and be able to think critically than be able to regurgitate a bunch of information and not be able to make their own decisions. My son is even, questioning the political views of the people that he's around, including myself and my husband. And I love that. I love that because I want him thinking critically. I want him making his own decisions. So back to adults, back to us, we have to think correctly. And this is why I can't separate mindset from health, because if we're thinking we can't do it, we're never going to lose the weight, we're never going to be healthy, then that's not correct thinking, because the universe is infinite and we want to take control of our thoughts, take control of our emotional state and our actions to lead us towards the life that we want. So back to this idea of feeling trapped. When we feel trapped in a job, in a relationship, in any situation, we always have a choice. We absolutely can feel trapped, but we actually always have a choice. It doesn't mean the choices are always great. It doesn't mean they're not scary. It doesn't mean they're not maybe risky, but there are choices. I was just talking on, I think, a webinar yesterday about we choose our hard. We choose our hard. And so it is hard to change, right? A lot of people don't like change. It's scary, the unknown. People that, invest in our programs, in our wellness programs, they're scared. They know they have obstacles they have to overcome and they're scared, but they take that leap, right? They leap into the unknown and invest in themselves and put the effort in to work on their diet, work on their fitness, balance their hormones, etc. And so when we look at choose your hard, it is hard to not feel good. It is hard to wake up and be sad or be in pain or have no energy. Just like it's hard to dive into the unknown and get up maybe when it's cold and move your body or make healthy choices. Choose your hard. It takes the same amount of energy to stay stuck where you are as it does to change. It's just different energy. We're just shifting over here the energy towards going towards what we want. I would much rather face my fears and take risks in the direction of what I want than to accept a life of just surviving, accept a life of unhappiness, accept not feeling good in my body. And so when we look at choosing our hard, we have this idea that the unknown or the change is going to be harder. But get into the end of the year and realizing you've lost more life, more time with your loved ones, quality time and all these things, that sucks. Like, that is hard, in my opinion. And I think if you really opened up and were honest, you would agree as well. That's not what we're here for, which is, I got all excited last time about this is why I do what I do, because I love helping, women in particular find their joy again, get themselves on the priority list, feel good in their bodies, find their joy, and start learning how to think in a way that they're the directors of their lives and not just the actors or the bystanders or the passenger seat or the extras. And when we look at choose your hard, it's the same with cost. Everything costs us something. There's a sacrifice for getting what we want. Now, typically it's a sacrifice of something less for something greater. Like when kids grow up, as they're growing, they don't want to let go of their blanket or their stuffy or their doll. It's a sacrifice, but something better comes along as they grow. And then it's a natural, okay, I'm going to get rid of this for something more. And so the way that we feel is costing us. And I don't just mean financially. I mean, feeling like crap costs us a lot, and it can cost, I've seen people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their health and they have insurance. They're not getting better. So it can cost us certainly financially, but it's also costing us quality time. It's costing us our life. It's costing us feeling amazing. So when you look at your health, I encourage you, kind of look at this body mind, spirit as which one of these is screaming out for me, and where do I want to begin? Like I said, we always want to kind of start with one thing and not overwhelm ourselves. So if you really feel physically not well, you could start with the physical, or you could scale back and say, am I physically not well because I'm really emotionally unhappy or emotionally anxious? And then if you're emotionally anxious, for example, is that a spirit issue? Is that a soul issue? Are you in a soul-sucking job? Are you in a relationship that is not healthy? Or is there a physiological thing? And I often don't think it's one thing. This is the thing. We want that one solution. It's my hormones. Everything that's happening is my hormones. Now, around perimenopause, hormones are a huge piece because our hormones are changing. But what I find more often is the things that you've been getting away with, the poor sleep, the maybe mediocre diet, the not moving your body, or maybe you have all those dialed in, but you're stressed and you're pushing and everybody else first. Those things catch up to us. As our hormones are changing, the body won't support it. It's like when we're older, I can't stay up all night anymore. I mean, I could, but not in the way I could when I was 20, and I wouldn't prefer to. And so our body stops tolerating. So there are the hormones, and that's real. And a lot of women feel amazing when they get on HRT, but if they don't deal with the underlying unhappiness in job, putting everybody else first, the choices that they have control over, then even the hormone therapy might be a Band-Aid. Could change a lot of things, but might still be a Band-Aid. And so I believe that every day we should do something that brings us joy. Every day, if we laughed every day, that would have a huge impact on our health. If we did something soul fulfilling and joyful every day, that would have a huge impact on our health. And it doesn't have to be for long. It could be for 5 minutes. But wow, we're bombarded with all of this crap all day. Take that 5 minutes for you and laugh and smile. And one of my favorite things is when I laugh until I cry, or I'm like, smacking the table. I mean, I have fallen down on the floor laughing before. And I noticed recently I don't do that as often as I did 10 years ago. So I want to change that. I want those belly laughs where I'm like, stop, make it stop, because it's healing. It's healthy. So look at my physical body. What part of it is coming from my mental health, my emotional health? Look at your mental health. What part of that is coming from your spirit, from your body? These are not separate. I can say that the physical is the last place it shows up. It starts in the head, the mental, it goes into the emotional and goes into the physical, but it also goes physical, emotional, mental. And the spirit is like it's like the center piece of all of those. And those other bodies, if you will, the emotional body, the mental body, the physical body, are wrapped around your spiritual self. And the spiritual self is for expansion. And so if we're caged in on any of those levels, we're going to feel it on a variety of levels. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And really encourage you to look at this within yourself and work with practitioners, mentors, guides, experts that are going to view you as a whole person. That's why I chose that education for my kids. I want them to be seen as a whole person and not just blamed. Oh, this is, this symptom is just because of this. And so take this and then you're fine. You're not. And we could be so much better on so many levels. And that is a game changer. I promise you that is a game changer, because when we're inspired, when we're joyful, it affects our mental, emotional, physical health. When we feel good physically, that affects, we're all one being. So let's start being treated like we're one being listened to, and you've got to be open. For sure, you have to be open because, I know people, like I won't work with people that honestly don't want to look at, I'm not going to force people, but if they won't look at certain aspects of their life, like it's non-negotiable, like we're not allowed to discuss my emotional well-being while working physically, I'm not the right match for them, because it's like the elephant in the room. and that's like saying, I'm going to let this elephant stay on my chest and we're going to work on my chest feeling amazing. It's like, well, can we take the elephant's foot off your chest? Can we at least talk about what that would look like? So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's different from what I usually do. I try to mix up the health topics, the physical topics, the mindset pieces. And today I wanted to show you how I view kind of bringing these all together and why I don't separate mindset and manifestation and success formulas from our well-being. We are one being, and we are, our spiritual DNA is perfect, and we are here to bring light to the world, and we can't do that if we don't feel well on any of these levels. So thank you again. Really so honored for you joining me and listening. I was gonna say if you listened, but if you're hearing this, then you listened. If you know someone this would help, please share it. Please share this with somebody. Know that you are enough as you are, and with the right support and the right system, you can start to feel like yourself again, or feel like the best version of yourself. You deserve that. And so please share it. You can email us at hello@uplevelhealth.com. If you have any questions, anything you want me to answer on this podcast, any topics you'd love me to talk about, just you can message us on social media, or you can email hello@uplevelholistichealth.com. And please, if you love this, share it with a friend, leave a rating, leave a review, and I look forward to being with you again next time. Thanks again so much. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UpLevel, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.